Hello, hello. Can y'all hear me? Hello, hello. Can y'all hear me out there? Trying to testing the mic. Probably should have done this beforehand. Can you hear me? I think maybe now. Hello, hello. Can y'all hear me? I think we got it. Good. We have some audio. Hello to everybody. I see I have a viewer on Facebook, a viewer on Twitch, oddly enough. Hello, Twitch, and a viewer on YouTube. Good to see you folks. It's been a while. Where have you been? Who the hell are you? And all that jazz. Well, I'm Joe Payne. I'm assuming everybody watching now probably knows me, probably knows who I am. But if you don't, my name is Joe Payne. I'm an independent journalist. Oh, just a moment. My co-host has entered the the room. This is baby Estrella. That's Espanol for a star. She's our little starlight star. Hello. So she will be joining me. That's my silent co-host there. Definitely want to say hi to everybody. Ask you how you're doing. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Oh, people are here. It's John Ross. Hello, John. Thank you for being here. Thanks for saying welcome back. Welcome to you. You can see my little baby girl back here. She's being a little sweetie pie. Oh my god. How's everybody doing? Just thought I would hop on stream. Thought I'd say hi. Where have I been? I've been in school. Haven't been live streaming really for quite some time because I've been busy. I've been in college, took a long hiatus, been taking a hiatus. I'm currently in my last quarter of grad school. I'm getting a master's in history right now. And thank you all for being here. I got 4 viewers now. It's fantastic. 3 on YouTube. Say hello in the chat. I would love to take some questions or thoughts. Did you see this? Did you see that? But I definitely have things I want to talk about. Seeing as we're in, Trump 2.0. I called this Trump 2.0 Authoritarian Takeover and Declining Empire because that's kind of where we're at, isn't it? We are seeing total erosion of some of the fundamental basics of American democracy, rule of law, the Constitution. It's kind of been hucked into the trash bin, the trash heap of history, as it were. I'm an independent journalist from Santa Maria, California. I like to talk about the news, talk politics. And there's a lot we can talk about. There's some local stuff I wanted to mention, or a local thing I wanted to mention. But I also think I just kind of have to address the elephant in the room of the Trump administration. And just what a authoritarian nightmare it has been from the outset. And then also just the buffoonery that has characterized this last month or so, and now we see the stock market taking a huge dive after the announcement of Trump's tariffs. Going to show you something really quick. We can kind of see what we got going on here. The massive amounts of the market loss across many parts of the market. I am not an investment bro, so I don't know anything. I couldn't tell you what all these mean, but it's not looking good. It's not looking good for a lot of companies. It's not looking good. If you have a 401k or any kind of retirement account that is connected to the market, I feel for you. And, that's not where I've decided to invest. Let me be real. What teeny tiny amount of money I don't have much. Always been a working class guy, paycheck to paycheck, my wife and I. And this has 2007, 2008 recession vibes all over again. This also, this isn't preceded by a crisis like we had in the recession of 2020. But I kind of feel like the James Franco meme where he has the noose around his neck and he turns to the guy next to him and says, "Is this your first time?" Because here we are again. And this is kind of how I feel about the second Trump administration is here we go again. But it's also accelerated. It's also quite when I say accelerated, I mean the assault on due process for immigrants, the assault on undocumented people, on fully legal documented residents, on green card holders. She's back, ladies and gentlemen. She's back. Let's get the cat back in full frame. That's what's important. But SS 1964 says radical right wing is as radical right wing does. Yeah, man. And it's not like we weren't warned about this. It's not like people weren't saying what was going to happen. Project 2025 was pretty clear. A little bit about my politics. I'm a social democrat. I believe in public goods governance. Communists or farther left people than me might just call me a liberal. You're just a lib. And I think right now we're kind of seeing, liberals can be quite annoying and easily impressed at times, or just not willing to address power in any real way. But as far as liberalism as a political concept and political practice, you're gonna miss it when it's gone. I would say voting, freedom of speech has been attacked on college campuses. You can't speak out about the crimes Israel has perpetrated against Palestinian people, the ongoing massacre and the genocide and ethnic cleansing of Gaza. You better be careful talking about that on a college campus or in a professional or whatever setting you might be, especially if you're an immigrant. They will come after you. We've seen multiple people taken away. Mahmoud Khalil, the young woman at Tufts as well, just taken off the street by ICE agents who don't identify themselves. They don't show any badges, and these people are offered no due process. And the Constitution and the Fifth Amendment says no person shall be deprived of the right of due process, and this is in flagrant violation of that. So we have an interesting comment here from John, who says Trump has been going on about trade deficits since the 80s. It seems to be the one thing he believes in most sincerely. That's kind of interesting. Trump had been flirting with running for president since before I was born. He talked about it in the 80s. I was born in 89. Last good thing to come out of the 80s. Just kidding. That's a good point you bring up, John, because this has been something he was clear on. And, there is so much excuse making and cope on the right for Donald Trump. It's always a game of 3D chess that they imagine is happening, and that this was all the art of the deal. A lot of Republicans or conservatives did not think this was going to happen. They did not think that he would actually follow through on the tariffs. But here we are. I don't know how many of you have been through a recession before. I remember 2007 well. In 2008, I graduated high school in 2007, and the economic prospects were bleak. It was bleak times. My wife and I tried to have a business together. We did have a business together for a coffee shop for about a year and a half, and it was in the shadow of a big empty box store here in my hometown of Santa Maria, California. And I reminded myself of like a feudal serf looking at an old Roman archway, like, "Ooh, it's a relic of the bygone world. We don't even know how it works anymore," right? But really, we were just in the thick of a recession caused by a massively deregulatory Republican administration. So you got to hand it to Trump. Usually, it takes a little longer for a Republican president to decimate the economy. Trump, he's going for a speed run this time, I would say. But so if you haven't been through this type of thing before, now's the time to batten down the hatches. I'm about to finish a degree, and I'm going to be saddled with student loan debt, of course, which if you talk to any basically Republican or center right person, they'll tell you my degree is useless, even though I find it personally very useful and enriching, and very glad I got it. I can talk more about that if y'all like. Try hit a like on this if you're watching, share it, do what you can. Again, I'm an independent journalist from Santa Maria, California. Left wing Bernie kind of guy, and I have my disdain and anger at the Democrats right now as well. I think we all kind of should. Cory Booker's speech the other day was very impressive to some people. Saying, "Oh, it's the longest filibuster." He broke Strom Thurmond. That was not a filibuster. He was not engaging in a filibuster. There was nothing to filibuster. He just gave a very long floor speech. So he broke the record for the longest floor speech in the Senate. Congratulations. It's again another symbolic act by the Democrats, pomp and sound and fury signifying nothing. The time to do this was when before Chuck Schumer handed over the keys to the Republicans and Trump with the budget resolution. I'm sure I don't need to tell most of you this who are watching. So I'm in California. We're used to kind of Democratic hegemony here. We have Gavin Newsom, who is obviously trying to jockey himself to run for president, to jockey in position and be a possible candidate for 2028. He did this by starting a podcast. I guess that's what we all do. I'm just firing up an old podcast of mine. I've been out of the game a little bit because I've been in school, as I've said. But yeah, Gavin Newsom started his podcast. He got, he thought the good thing to do is play, hold hands with Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon, tell them how great they are, and tell Charlie Kirk how much his kids love, or his son loves his content, or what have you. As a Californian, Gavin Newsom, folks, don't look to him for anything. Don't look to him for a presidential run. Or if you do, be careful what you wish for, because Gavin Newsom is the nephew of Nancy Pelosi, a moneyed family, nepotism all the way. It's no offense to anybody named Gavin, but I just I have trouble taking the guy seriously, especially when I hear his name. SS 1964 is pitching in on the tariff situation. Trump is an idiot. Trade deficits are different because of supply and demand, but also the amount of consumers per country. Of course, America with 340 million people will have a high trade. Yeah, we have lived through the neoliberal era. People are declaring the neoliberal economic period to be over. But Reaganism and Thatcherism, a big part of Reaganism in the United States was defanging unions and labor in the United States, and deregulating corporations and allowing them or making it easier for them. And to be clear, Bill Clinton is guilty of this with NAFTA as well, but making it easier for them to move production overseas, move it to China, move it to Mexico, move it to Taiwan, Thailand, Indonesia, areas where they could find it easier to exploit workers. And we we deindustrialized the country, folks. That was the thing is corporations, car makers, they did not want to pay union laborers to create their products, but we still live in the richest consumer society empire, imperial hegemon, if you will, meaning we kind of run the world in our way or have. But oddly enough, we deindustrialized all of our industry over to China, which now, surprise, surprise, everybody's so surprised that they're rivaling our economy. And so Trump is pulling a playbook from the early early 20th century, from the turn of the turn of the century. I'm getting my degree in history, by the way, and so I've tried to study as much of the modern period as I can. But yeah, where he's literally relying on a playbook that helped barrel us into. I mean, he's. I have a video clip we can take a look at here really quick, and let's just hear it straight from the guy's mouth himself. Let's give this a try. You tell me if you can't hear the commander in thief. If I'm going to be embarrassing like that, I'll make the joke. But let's give a listen to
a big price. From 1789 to 1913, we were a tariff-backed nation, and the United States was proportionately the wealthiest it has ever been. So wealthy, in fact, that in the 1880s, they established a commission to decide what they were going to do with the vast sums of money they were collecting. We were collecting so much money so fast, we didn't know what to do with it. Isn't that a nice problem to have? What do you think, Marco? Good problem? Marco would love that problem. But we don't have that problem anymore, but we're not going to have it very much longer, I will tell you. But they collected so much money, they actually formed a commission to determine what they were going to do with the money, who they were going to give it to, and how much. Then in 1913, for reasons unknown to mankind, they established the income tax so that citizens, rather than foreign countries, would start paying the money necessary to run our government. A big price.
Nobody knows. All of mankind is still puzzling. Why in the world did we do the income tax? Nobody knows. It's a big mystery. So, when Trump gave his inauguration speech, he spoke of America's now entering the golden age, this golden period. This is the Gilded Age all over again. Okay, Trump's protectionism, his isolationism, this full-on barreling into a recession through this protectionist tariff regime. If he's acting like this is going to bring manufacturing back to the United States, it might bring. There might be some increase in factory production here in the United States. I can't see it being facilitated any greater than like the incentives and the infrastructure that Biden was funding under the Build Back Better. To me, a lot of that was very half-assed and not enough. But the CHIPS Act, other things that he did. But so much of factory work is automated already now. And they're acting as if we can go back to some golden industrial age, but really what he's bringing us back to is the Gilded Age, where as SS 1964 points out, that is what barreled us into the Great Depression, because so much of the wealth was funneled upwards, and this is what is happening right now, is a wealth transfer. The stock market is crashing. If everybody with 401ks whose retirement is tied to the stock market is losing, they're losing everything right now, or they're watching their 401ks dwindle, and it's gonna hurt the most of us the most, and it's only going to funnel more wealth up. I mean, I'm sure Elon Musk is excited about this. I'm sure Mark Andreessen and all the billionaires that frankly, not that bright bros, people I know, see on the Joe Rogan Experience and go, well, he was on the Joe Rogan Experience, so he must know what he's talking about when he says the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is unbanking people and all of this nonsense. I've seen too many, dudes I grew up with, frankly, go along the reactionary rabbit hole watching the Joe Rogan Experience. I stopped watching that show years ago. Um, but then there's also just an illogic and kind of a something else, like in this iteration of Trump, that is very imperialistic. Trump doesn't really have original ideas. As somebody pointed out, he's been talking about these trade deficits for a long time, but he's also reminding of Teddy Roosevelt. Without all the early 20th century progressivism of the national parks and whatnot, but rather more the expansionist approach. He all of a sudden he did not run on this. He did not talk about this. And all of a sudden, he wants to take Greenland. He wants to take Canada as his 51st state. You think he would talk about doing that to Mexico, but we all know why he's not doing that. And the threats that he made during the election about invading Mexico now seem disturbingly, it very, who knows? Like it seems like they really think that they could do something like that. Now they're ramping up. Our military has boots on the grounds in Israel. Iran is preparing itself for hostilities. So if just remember all those people who were telling you that Trump was going to end the wars and all that, like this, people will believe anything. People will believe anything. Somehow, I was not impressed with Kamala Harris's campaign. I think it was just an abject failure. She spent pretty much the whole time after she picked Walz as a running mate. That was like the one glimmer of hope. But after that, spent the whole time just shoveling shit, frankly, into the faces of the base of the Democratic Party. Did not voice any opposition to the support for Israel and their war crimes by the Biden administration. She paraded herself around with Liz Cheney, which for my generation of millennials, that's a poison name. The Cheney name is political poison. We want nothing to do with the Cheneys. And frankly, the fact that they thought that was a good idea tells you how completely out of touch that the Democratic establishment is. The Democratic Party needs a hostile takeover, frankly. Bernie and AOC doing their tours around the country is great. It's but to be frank, it ain't great. It's not enough. It's too little, too late. It's a way of harnessing some, of the rage that's being felt against this administration. But frankly, the entire party, the Democratic Party, is in need of a hostile takeover. If you have any ability or means, you need to, get involved in your local party. Maybe don't go in there and scream in their face from the outset, but try to get involved, see who's there. There are a lot of the folks who do get involved. They are not. Let me just say, they're not sending their best, right? It's not going to take a lot to go in there and pull the mic out of people's hands, or the gavel, as it were. But if you are gonna do that, I don't blame you if you wouldn't want to. Who wants to claim they're a Democrat? The Democrats are cringe. They have been for a long time. This is part of our political problem. Is if you're anywhere on the political left, the Democrats hate you. Because they don't want to do anything. They don't want to challenge their donor class. They don't want to do any of that. But you can be as cringe as you want and be a Republican, and it only helps. You can have Trump tattooed on your forehead, or MAGA, if you will. You can have a Trump shirt, Trump's face all over, everything, American flags with Trump on them. You can be telling people how healthy RFK is, and the guy's clearly on steroids. But none of that matters. You can be as embarrassing and cringe as you want on the right, and there's always room for you. But it's the Democrats are not living up to the moment. They're frankly leaving more than a little to be desired. They haven't been acting like an opposition party at all. So we are in this situation where we're on our own. It sure seems like, doesn't it? We have seen, as someone on the left, as a leftist, I see this debate raging about, I frankly call Trump a fascist. I call what this administration is doing is fascist. If it's not under the classical definition, the academic definition of fascist, in practice, they are operating fascistically, and I don't think it's that. Actually, historically accurate. Maybe it's more accurate to, or that they are. Some of them sound like neo-monarchists. They would like Trump to stay in power indefinitely. And they want to go even before 1776, which they like to lay claim to. So we're in a just a it's a weird amorphous. It's definitely Trump 2.0 rhymes with Republican authoritarianism as we've seen it. Across my lifetime, at least, there were fascistic aspects of George W. Bush and his administration. Look at this cat; she's adorable. But just for me, like I've been accused of trying to instill fear or try to incite fear in people for using the term fascist. Um, People are already afraid, man. In my community, which is an agricultural, industrial valley that I live in, the fascism, the fascistic nature of it is felt by my community. This is a reign of terror. This is what they wanted. This is what a lot of Republican voters wanted. I used to be a journalist at a weekly newspaper here in town. Facebook helped kill your local newspaper wherever you are. It killed local newspapers across the country. The paper I used to work at is less people, less pages, less news. To me, I caught whiffs of the fash aspect of Trump during that time when he's declaring journalists the enemy of the people and attacking immigrants. But local newspapers have been, since Facebook helped kill them, it's been replaced by your local Facebook group. The local Facebook groups here on the central coast of California, including in Santa Maria, have been weaponized by people who are overtly fascist, loud and proud. They've used it to try to disappear their neighbors, report people. ICE has been scooping people up here in town, disappearing people. So my community feels it. And thank you, SS. They are fascist, gaggle of white supremacists of many flavors. Yeah, and these are people who get quite excited, actually, to see the footage of men in chains who were allegedly Venezuelans. We have no idea because due process, it doesn't exist anymore. If you are a Latino or you have tattoos of any kind, you just are not going to have any type of protection from that. And Trump's little Eichmann in co-chief is JD Vance. I do have a clip from Vance really quick. We can look at. And this is discussing a legal resident of the United States who was taken away by ICE and taken to the gulag in El Salvador. And frankly, anybody making excuses for this, like I mean, I don't know, you're just you're fascist sympathetic, because taking people away with no due process, disappearing them to a foreign prison, they're building a massive camp at Guantanamo. Again, this is like the layer cake of George W. Bush's we know what his administration did at Guantanamo, or at least I hope we do. And they're constructing a giant concentration camp there. So this is what J.D. Vance had to say about this legal U.S. resident who sounds like his only crime legitimately was being Latino or possibly having a tattoo. But this is what the dehumanizing rhetoric of calling people illegals for years has done. If by definition you say that these people are illegal, you're saying that their existence is criminal. And that's why, I'm a trained journalist. The Associated Press would not use that term, illegals, because that does not describe a human being, or it should not. And that's what this dehumanizing rhetoric has been about, so they can get away with doing stuff like this. So let's hear from the vice president real quick.
You've talked to the men and women on the ground. What can you tell us about that situation?
Well, there have been a few cases out there where the Democrats and the media say, oh, this person was just an innocent father of three. And then you find out, for example, I think this is the case that you're talking about. Back in 2019, an immigration judge looked at all the evidence, looked at all the data, and concluded that this allegedly innocent person that we sent to El Salvador was actually a member of an MS-13 gang.
Allegedly innocent. Like, how would we know if you gave no due process to this person? And again, they're just claiming everybody's a gang member, and now they're claiming, they've declared that MS-13, that these gangs are terrorist groups now. So, taking the language of the Bush era, applying it to Central and South American gangs. This is an escalation. There were a lot of people telling you it wasn't going to be this bad, but here we are.
He had also committed some traffic violations. He had not shown.
Oh, traffic violations, people. Traffic violations. How many of us are guilty of traffic violations, right? Does that make you an illegal? Does that make you open to being carted off to a foreign gulag? And guess what? Where did MS-13 come from? MS-13 came from within a super prison. It's one of these supermax prisons where they were locking people up indiscriminately. I have more to say about Salvador and Bukele and all that, but just a moment.
Up for some court dates. This is not exactly Father of the Year here. This is a person that we don't think should be in our country. Here's the most important point, though, Lawrence, is whatever the argument is, whatever the justification is.
So its real point here is that if they say a person doesn't belong in the country, they don't belong in the country. That's it. It's as, the Republicans stacked the Supreme Court with conservative justices, and they declared Trump, if he says something shall be, then so it shall be, and it's lawful before this last election. So we have, law by fiat from the Mad King, essentially. So
no one doubts, not even the crazy left-wing media criticized the idea that we could deport this person. They just took issue with the reasoning.
I'm sorry, everybody does, I don't know what the crazy left-wing media he's referring to is. I'm an individual left-wing person in America. We still have the right to be left-wing in this country, I think, right? Maybe, hopefully, we still get to be left-wing and have our own beliefs here. But I'm criticizing them for obliterating due process and having no method by which to even... How can we trust that any of these people have done anything at all? This guy was a legal resident that they're discussing. And, well, if he just says, if we don't want him here, he shouldn't be here.
For why we deported this person. This was unquestionably an illegal alien. This was unquestionable.
No, he wasn't. And that's not unquestionable. We don't know because there's no due process here. So yeah, there was no question because there was no due process.
Unquestionably a person who broke the laws to get into our country. This is unquestionably a person.
No, he didn't do that either.
An immigration judge had found had zero right to be in the United States of America. We do not.
He's a legal resident, green card holder.
Ask permission from far left Democrats before we deport illegal immigrants.
Which Democrat is far left? Are there any of them that are truly far left? AOC and Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a social democrat, like I guess, that's kind of how I identify. Am I far left? Because I think we should, I don't know, build public housing, have free school lunches so children don't starve. Ben Shapiro was just on stream, like just within the last day or two, saying, "Oh, if you can't feed your kids, we shouldn't be giving out free school lunches. CPS should take your children away." That's the small government conservatives we're hearing from these days.
We do the American people's business. And again, for the American people who are watching, this is such a weird, mistaken placement of priorities. We need to make our country stronger. We need to create jobs. We need to make our streets safer.
Yeah, and like, how are we making anybody safer when we've just eroded due process? Like, you are not safe. You and I are not safe. These amendments of the Constitution, our Constitution exists to protect us from this type of shit, the government, this type of authoritarian action from the government. And here we are, not protected at all. So they are definitely trying to play hide the ball with what's going on here. It's insane. It's insane. And here we are stuck with it. I got 2 whole viewers. This is fantastic. I got one on Twitch. I love to see it. Hey, Twitch person, whoever you are out there, thank you for being there. Smash the like button. Give me a comment. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or anything else? My audience of 2. Appreciate y'all. I had 4 there for a second, but maybe I'm not saying anything new to anybody. But I've been very busy. I have a day job. I'm going to grad school. I'm almost done with a master's degree in history. And, frankly, I decided to study history because history is a tool to understand power. You can study power and how it operates through history. I honestly credit the late, great Michael J. Brooks for my trajectory in that, because I don't think I would have ended up studying history in quite, with the approach that, or at all academically, if I hadn't have, been exposed to him and his work. I'm talking about Michael Brooks. He passed away in 2020. So, it kind of tells you about the fallen world that we live in, the kind of hellscape timeline that, Henry Kissinger got to live to 100. Trump gets to win a second term. Stephen Miller is basically has the reins. And, we lost Michael J. Brooks in 2020. And, we're just stuck in, I've largely seen the United States. I've been just trying to describe it in a lot of different ways for a long time, but I see it as kind of a right-wing tech dystopia. We live in the libertarian, dystopia that Reaganism, the Democrats have been, and the Republicans have been economically aligned since Reagan. Clinton famously won with the tactic of triangulation, where he basically walked, talked, acted like a Republican, or Clinton famously said the era of big government is over, right? He also said make America great again. Reagan also said make America great again. It's nothing new, folks. It's nothing new. SS says I miss Mr. Brooks, but we'll still have Mr. Cedar. Hopefully, yeah. He might have a target on his back now because he's getting more popular. He was on that god awful show Jubilee, just going toe to toe with the most bigoted wackos you could possibly find. He was on PBD this morning. I have a lot of respect for Sam Cedar. Call him a lib, call him whatever you want. That guy does the work, man. He shows up every day. And honestly, I feel like the American left, we need more of that. We need ice in our veins. We need to realize that this is a long, hard slog. We are swimming up a shit river with our mouths open every single day. You can see it in just the amount of billionaire money that there is for the right wing in this country. You wouldn't know about Ben Shapiro or Charlie Kirk or Jordan Peterson or any of these people, frankly, if it weren't for massive heaps of money from right wing billionaires. Surprise, surprise, on the left, for all the Republican fear mongering about George Soros, there's not checks being written to independent left wing podcasters because billionaires don't tend to want to fund people who are critical of capitalism. Imagine that. So, the deck is totally stacked against us. There's so many things that have been eroded in our society. We used to have the what was it called, the fairness doctrine, right, where there had to be equal time for both sides of a debate. The Republican and the conservative ascendancy, hegemony in this country. It's tied to talk radio with Rush Limbaugh, and then you have Fox News in the 90s, and then you have Breitbart in the late 90s, and the internet. This is all infused by billionaire money. Billionaires will spend hundreds of millions for and waste that money, frankly. Why? Because they know that it will result down the line in swaying public opinion, and it ends up with the biggest tax breaks we've ever seen for the ruling class in America. Wealth inequality is outstripping the Gilded Age right now. So Trump is talking about bringing us to this golden age, and essentially we're returning to the wealth inequality and the concentrated power in the hands of very few people. And honestly, it's even worse than the Gilded Age because we're not in that world anymore. The propaganda tools are much more sophisticated now. They can psychographically analyze you. They know everything that makes you laugh and cry and smile. They know what shocks you. They know what makes you angry. They know what you like. They know what you hate. And we've given that all to them through these apps. And surprise, surprise, Mark Zuckerberg is do we want to just call everybody a fascist? Well, I don't know if you spent much time on Facebook lately. I mean, they have organized pogroms on Facebook in other countries, and it seems like they're getting really close to it now in the United States. But it shouldn't surprise people that as soon as TikTok, my wife is on TikTok much more than I am. I'm barely on that app. And then after Trump's pretend ban, and then his or which Biden continued stupidly, and then Trump said, "Oh, we're going to bring TikTok back." I mean, the probably the easiest like Lucy with the football moment that the Democrats could have not just completely messed up. But as soon as my wife got back onto TikTok after the ban, after the shutdown, the self-imposed shutdown, she noticed way more right-wing shit on her algorithm. Funny how that works, isn't it? Young people, young men, everybody's wondering why young men are in such a crisis of masculinity, and there's all this talk about the male masculinity crisis and the male loneliness epidemic, and it's because young men are fed a constant stream of right-wing propaganda, misogyny, hatred for women and people of color, people not like them. I like video games. I play some video games. Just the ads I see on YouTube alone, because I've watched some video game videos. Once the algorithm finds out you like video games, the type of ads I see are and they're just trying to get you to buy a video game, and it's full of misogyny. Games that make dating they turn the prospect of dating a woman into a role play battle app type of, like a Pokemon battle or whatever, or like a classic Dragon Ball Z battle. Like, you're talking about trying to connect to another human being, and they're gamifying that. They're and you can hear it in the way the misogynistic Andrew Tate types talk. They have completely embodied The capitalist realism is so thick in their heads that you need to be a high value man and you need a high value woman. They've commodified themselves. We've commodified ourselves. We've commodified each other. People aren't people; they're just things. And they're thing, and you see how these apps have done it. Like, I'm glad I'm married and I met the love of my life when I did. But you hear young people talk about how terrible dating is, and that's because it's been turned into a commodification. It's a thing in your phone now. Dating is an app instead of genuine human connection, meeting somebody over something you like. Even creativity. I met my wife in a music class. We're both musicians. Creativity now is going out the door because, well, let's just have an AI do it for you. You don't need to learn how to draw. You don't need to learn how to play music. You don't need to learn how to write. You don't need to learn how to do any of these things because machines will do it for you. We're letting machines think for us. People are literally think it's acceptable to, instead of researching a question or a problem they might have, to outsource it to a computer, and a computer that's using massive amounts of water and resources to come up with these. It's just a content generator. ChatGPT and these other AIs are just regurgitating stuff that humans already came up with. I think I heard C. Derek Varn. He's got a good show, Varn Vlog. Point out that like we're it's not going to be that long before, because so many people involved in computer coding are having AI computer code for them. How long is it before you can't even correct these computers because you don't know how to do it? Students don't know how to read a full book anymore. They don't know how to write an essay anymore. Students just out of high school, illiteracy has accelerated. This is exactly what the tech overlords love to see. We're all engaged in reactionary content. We're all addicted to our phones. They bring out the worst in us. They're making us more depressed. They're making us more angry. We're dehumanizing each other. I'm guilty of it. It brings out the worst in all of us. I will say things on my local Facebook group that I wouldn't say to somebody if they were in front of me, because I'm an empathetic human being. But even then, I've been in arguments harsh enough with people I don't agree with that I have said things. I have said those types of things to their face, and it doesn't make you feel any better. It's not good, folks. It's not good. We're in a rough spot. We have to go against so many different. We have to go against so many different incentives, and instincts that we have as human beings that are being manipulated and pulled on and yanked and pushed, and we're being pushed and pushed and pushed, and now here we are. And the way the economy is going, it's only going to make people more angry. It's only going to make people more reactionary. And it's unfortunate because we all have to do a balancing act where now is the time to be, if you're on the left or what have you, it's now is the time to stand up for ourselves and show people we're not going to be intimidated. We're not going to be intimidated by the right. We're not going to be intimidated by this lawless power grab that's going on. One little like ray of hope was the electorally rather is in Wisconsin. Elon Musk's brand is becoming toxic. Speaking of Elon Musk and toxic, I live in Santa Maria, California. We are, in sight, within a few minutes drive to Vandenberg Space Force Base. I can do my Hank Hill impression. Back in my day, it was called the Air Force Base. That was branded the Space Force Base some years ago during the first Trump regime. And SpaceX has launched a rocket every week. They scheduled like 52 or 53 launches last year, and just as many, if not more, this year. That's a launch a week. It launches from Vandenberg Used to be a thing that happened a couple times a year around here, that people would drive from far and wide to see the big ICBM get tested. Um, Now it's every week. I don't live in Lompoc. Lompoc is right there next to Vandenberg. People there, it's like damaging their homes. They rattle their window panes. We're all down, we're all downwind or whatever from these massive plumes of jet exhaust that are going off from here, all because our government has privatized NASA and funded the wealthiest man, who's an arms contractor. That's all Elon Musk is a military contractor who buys up, he buys up other companies to wash his image, like Tesla, even though he's done a really good job of destroying that. Um, I think the biggest thing we all have to remember is we're in a class war. This is class war. This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. And it hits all of us differently. But if you didn't know you were in one, I think a lot of people are finding out right about now. I have always been a working class guy, paycheck to paycheck. I have the best job I've ever had now. My views only reflect myself and not those of my employer, to be clear. Um, but I feel for everybody who is not in as good of I'm in an okay spot. I'm gonna, as soon as I graduate, I got to start paying tens of thousands of dollars in loans and school loans. So I'm tied down. I'm not going to be, I, frankly, I don't think it's a great idea to go vandalize a Tesla dealership, or even though those cars spontaneously combust themselves. And definitely, I'm sure there are people who, that's a good for the insurance write off if your Tesla dealership goes up in flames if you own one. But I'm not gonna be involved in it in anything like that. Like, I think this iteration of the Trump era, like, we all need to be careful, because they will use any excuse, any pretext. All you have to do is have a tattoo and have brown skin and speak Spanish, and you might just get taken away. This is how it is now. That's how it is in my community. That's how it's being felt. Um, I don't mean to be so dire. I like to have a sense of humor. I like to have fun and do impressions and play music and have fun and everything. But we're going into it's only going to get worse right now, especially with the economy crashing. We have a lot of homelessness in my area. That's only going to get worse. We've Americans have turned living in their cars into a lifestyle brand. This is a big problem. I'm in one of the few places in California that regularly rubber stamps new housing, but it's not that affordable. It really is not. If you're paying rent in this area, this is supposed to be the affordable area, and it ain't so affordable. I don't know how people are making it. I don't know how people are doing it. Everybody's struggling. And if you're a small business owner, a lot of my friends are. I have a small business on the side. People have less expendable income to hit you up for your services. Whether you're, whether you got a taco truck, or you're tuning pianos like I do, or whatever else, it's hard. It's getting harder out there, and it's only gonna. It's accelerating, and you see the desperation of people, and desperate people do desperate things. And that brings me to something happened last year in Santa Maria around October, and it was a quick blip. It made national news, but then it was just like, on with your life. But we had a terrorist attack in downtown Santa Maria. In October of Santa Maria last year in 2024, a young guy, 20-year-old, named Nathaniel. Oh man, what's his It's McGuire, I think. Nathaniel McGuire. I could be wrong about that. He tossed a bomb into the Santa Maria courthouse. He was facing a gun charge and some other charges there. But, this guy thought the appropriate thing for him to do was to literally toss a bomb into our courthouse. He did so, and he was quickly apprehended by or he was actually first apprehended by a security guard there. Let me try to bring up the story because I really do want to give the guy a shout out. Excuse me, but there was a security guard there who, oddly enough, grew up in Ireland in Belfast back in the 80s. If you know, that was a place that had a lot of bombings. And this guy, Nathaniel McGuire, ran in, tossed a bag. The bag exploded. It harmed 5 people. Nobody died, but it harmed 5 people. This security guard chased him to his car, and or his truck rather. And the guy's getting in his truck. The security guard yanked him out of the truck, got him to the ground. Then a couple of our Santa Maria police department detectives were there at the courthouse for court. And, they got to him. You can see them here in their suits. They're going to be dragging him along. I will unmute it for just a moment so you can kind of hear what the case.
Who threw a fucking bomb?
And honestly, that there's no explosives in that car.
He's lying. There are explosives.
No explosives at all in that car.
So there's the sheriff's deputy. Those are SMPD detectives. Security guard grabbed him initially. The guy filming this is going to notice as they're moving him.
Damn, he fucking threw a bomb at.
Yeah, bullets
inside
bullets are going to fall out of his pocket.
Inside where everybody goes in.
Back up, please. We're going to have the fire department come. Let's back up.
Sorry for the alarm sound. I do want you guys to hear what it's like.
Fucking traitors!
Calling them traitors.
Oh, look at all the ammo.
You motherfuckers think you can get away with this in the States? No!
Look at all the fucking ammo he has. Damn. Look at that shit.
Don't violate the Constitution, motherfucker! Don't violate it! Fuck all of you!
Look at all that shit. Look at, he has a bunch of, had guns with him.
You fucking traitors! Fuck you!
So a bunch of shells are falling out of this guy's pocket. His car was full of more incendiary devices, Molotov cocktails, but firearms, multiple firearms, and ammunition. So I work nearby. My workplace was put on lockdown, and I was later evacuated. So this guy was planning to shoot he was hoping for the judge. He was facing a trial that day for a gun charge. This is California. You can't just walk around with a loose, unregistered firearm rattling around in your pocket like this guy was. He also, I don't know, had some drugs or whatever. Don't really care about that. Don't think, people should be facing charges really that much for controlled substances. But this guy's answer, really, he threw this bomb in our courthouse. It harmed innocent people. It had nothing to do with, they were at the courthouse probably to, face some kind of fight their traffic ticket or their speeding ticket or whatever. Hope the cop who pulled them over, the officer who didn't pull them over wouldn't be there to defend it or whatever. Just trying to get through their day. And this guy tossed a bomb in there, and it exploded and harmed people. It was a lot of smoke, but it did burn people. He was hoping to do like a mass shooting downtown Santa Maria and kill the judge, as hoping he would get them trying to escape the building. Um, and really, thanks to the efforts of this security guard, who just got to him just quick enough. Let's see, what's the guy? The guy's name is Steve Neal. I can show you the security guard. I can show you his something with him in it really quick from the local news. I just want to give him mad props. That's what he looks like. That's Steve Neal. Good on you, buddy. You thought you were. He thought he had left a lot of the bombs behind after moving away from Ireland, where he grew up in the '80s in Belfast, where there's a lot of that was going on there at the time. But honestly, he probably knew what he was seeing the moment it happened, because the guy yelled something out. If you didn't catch the terrorist when he was screaming out, he was yelling about the Constitution. He was calling everybody their traitors. He was saying they kill people, even though he just tried to kill people in our courthouse. But this to me really speaks to the kind of chaos and weirdness of our times, where again, just mad props to Mr. Neal. He was honored with a proclamation from the county. Good for him. He deserves it. Hero, if you ask me. But just about 1964 points. Sounds like a Jan 6, or just about, pretty much. Right-wing extremist. Why should Santa Maria be any more special than anywhere else? These guys are everywhere. They're all over the country. In 2020 or 2021, back when I was doing the show more often, the San Luis Obispo County sheriffs of the county north of mine got in a shootout with a neo-Nazi gang member who had a whole stockpile of guns in his car and got pulled over. And this is like a very California scene. I'm not trying to be flippant about it, but this neo-Nazi grabs like a pistol or an AR-15, whatever he could get his hands on, shot at the officer trying to pull him over, and then runs off into, right there was a vineyard, a wine grape vineyard. So very California, right off Highway 101. But here in my hometown, dodging a terrorist attack, and part of me wants to think, if we lived in a more stable economy, would this kid be this angry? Would he be this disturbed? Frankly, I get annoyed. I got annoyed with people who just after this were blaming or saying, "Oh, mental health, mental health." There are lots of people who have mental illness in this country, and they don't commit terrorist attacks. Sometimes they just have an ideology, and they're radicalized, and they hype themselves up, and then there's a precipitating event, like they catch a gun charge, and so they want to attack the courthouse for that. But we've seen the American right wing, by and large, the far right, I would say, but the right wing in general hates the government. We see it now with what Musk is doing with Doge, with how they go after the government. This is, this hatred of the government. The government's all around you. Like, it's like, it's hard to understand where the anger comes from. Sometimes, people are suffering from mental illness, and, postal workers get attacked because they are the most common government worker that people see, because they come by your house every day. But as long as I've been alive, our public schools have been the targets of right-wing extremism, because, and you definitely see it with this kind of, I don't know, the I don't like loaded terms like toxic masculinity or whatever, or the manosphere or whatever, but you see it with their movement, that they really hate teachers. They hate ever having to be told to read a book or learn a little history or do anything they didn't want to do. It gets tied in with gender. If I've known guys, young men who just hate this teacher telling them what to do or asking them what to do, and women asking them to, hey, can you calm down? Can you read the book? Can you, whatever? Some guys never get over having to read a book, I think, but it's really unfortunate. With this guy, maybe this guy has some kind of mental illness. The guy who did this attack in my hometown. Maybe he does. Maybe if we had a public option like Medicare for all, we would have less untreated mental illness in this country. We would have less people sleeping on the streets. We'd have less people in desperation. We'd have less people willing to use violence. There was a man who attacked the slow sheriff's deputies and Paso Robles police in 2020, and the sheriff there was quick to blame Black Lives Matter. And really, it was just a man who lived in the riverbed, and he had severely untreated schizophrenia. Severely untreated. Now, I mention that because mental illness is a factor, but we can't just be blaming mental illness on everything when we have millions of people who deal with mental illness in this country. They remain untreated. They remain ostracized in our society, but they don't commit acts of violence. And they're human beings, and so is this guy. This terrorist, frankly, is a human being. And I also think the role of constant right-wing propaganda that makes you feel aggrieved, makes you feel angry, makes you feel like something's being taken away from you. And it doesn't blame the richest people on the planet who are openly buying elections. They don't blame the corporate overlords that have destroyed Main Street America and consolidated everything under their conglomerates, under their umbrellas. We used to have local hardware stores and local grocery stores and local newspapers and you used to have a local economy, local coffee shops with different characters. My wife and I owned one back in the day. Those things are all gone now. They've been wiped out by the alienation we feel in this country, that so many people feel, is for whatever reason the far right never wants to blame the wealthy and the rich and the 1%, but they'll blame school teachers. That's why Columbine was committed by right-wing extremists. Those kids did it on the anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing, right? Which was done in retaliation for Ruby Ridge. So many of the school shooters, you find out, have some kind of neo-Nazi manifesto. This is just where we're at. This is just the country we live in. This ain't that America, right? The whole thing that you hear Democrats and liberals say of like, this isn't us. This isn't America. What country have they been living in? And it's unfortunate, but we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to protect each other. That we have to protect our communities. I know lots of conservatives. I'm friendly with a bunch of conservatives. This town always asserts itself, or this is a conservative town. It doesn't vote that way. When you actually look at the voter rolls in Santa Maria, California, it does not vote that way. Most people here don't vote at all. Most of it. Most of the people living in the valley do not vote. But the majority in the valley actually do end up, just like the rest of California, voting for the Democratic Party, even though the way that people in this town like to posture that it's this conservative stronghold. No, this is a city of more than 100,000 people in this valley. And you take into account the unincorporated areas, the more far-flung Guadalupe, the inland Tepisque, or not, maybe not Tepisque, but Casmelia and or not Casmelia. I mean, we have a bunch of little kind of more rural, smaller towns nearby. Sisquoc is what I'm thinking about. There's like close to 200,000 people got to be living in this valley. Um, and I know plenty of conservatives. Some of them, we're good friends, and sometimes we like to talk about this stuff, sometimes we don't. But I you know I they're like, I know people who they're conservative, and they feel intimidated by conservatives. They keep quiet. You know, I've been to like the local Republican meetings and had people texting me under the table like, God, I can't, oh, not this again. But they don't want to speak up, or like they're pro-choice, they're pro-abortion. They believe abortion should be a right for women to have autonomy over their bodies, but they keep quiet about it. They keep quiet about it because they don't want to deal with the repercussions of that. I've been told my whole life this city is a certain way. No, it's not. No, it's not. We have everybody here. We have everybody here, and that's how America is. We're like, what I kind of see what Trump's doing is like, and MAGA in general. It's a big intimidation tactic. It reminds me of the Red Scare. It reminds me of McCarthyism. It reminds me of what just how the government is weaponized, as like J. Edgar Hoover. You know, Trump was declaring BLM and Antifa as terrorists before 2020, and then he leads a mob, to attempt a coup. They literally tried to overthrow the results of an election. And you hear Republicans say that after January 6th. They go, well, what about Black Lives Matter? What about, yeah, when did Black Lives Matter try to disrupt the constitutional transfer of power? Oh, wait. Right? It didn't happen. It's like, it's embarrassing for leftists to come out and defend the Constitution of the United States or the America as America. Because, if you're like me and you're anti-war and you're anti-imperialist and you're anti-capitalist, I mean, that's another problem is the left, like we have all the time in the world to tell you what we're not for, what we're against, what we're anti. But you only get like, we only got one Bernie Sanders, and he's like a once in a lifetime guy, and he was ignored most of his political career. Even though and he's reviled by a lot now on the political left, for because he's tried to play ball and play the inside game or what have you, whether you think that's useless or not. But I still have 2 viewers here. Happy to see you all. But I definitely think like the left, if we have one, needs to recognize the moment that we're in, have some solidarity with your neighbors and with the people who are taking it rougher than you. This is, it's really easy to be like all snide and oh, whatever, man. It's not that. It's not. Biden was fascist. Biden's just as fascist as those people aren't saying that now, or they're the same people who are telling me Biden was the real fascist. They don't post about Gaza anymore that the election's over. They don't care, right? So it's if our politics is just boiled down to who we hate and who we don't want to win, that's not going to be good. It's not going to work. So I definitely think leftists need to be a little more serious about trying to seize power. Go to your local whatever group, club. Everybody always says organize in your community. What does that even? Nobody knows what that means. People are barely connected to their communities. And and even if they are, they barely speak up when things get bad. This one just has to have attention. People, I think everybody likes to LARP. Everybody wants to feel a certain way or act a certain way, but the real work of it, it's work. It's work. And that's something that the right has actually taken much more seriously than the left and even liberals, I would say, and liberal progressive Democrats, whatever you want to call them. They want a lot of people want to go to the protests. They want to post the pictures. They want to use the hashtags, but like they don't want to do the work, man. And that's what it is it's a work. It's a slog. And if you got to build something, you got to start by building trenches and laying pipes and spreading cement and laying a foundation. And that's grunt work. That's work no one wants to do. It's not fun to do that. I'm a musician. Nobody wants to hear you practice your instrument. Everybody wants to hear a performance. And a lot of people, they don't even want to do all that work. They want to have they want to have the ability to do the performance. But if you ever want to get to that level to be able to do that, you got to spend what we call the ass time putting in the work, practicing, running your scales and practicing your chord changes and working on your songs and your set list. But nobody wants to do the work. Everybody wants the result. So I could keep ranting about it, but I've been going an hour and 19 minutes now. Who's here? Who's actually watching me? I got 2 viewers here. Let me know. Say hi. I mean, shoot me a question. Can you get me some more subs, please? I would love to have a wider audience. Please check out the latest video I did on my channel. Let me show you my YouTube channel. I actually I could talk a little bit about before I go about what I've been writing about for my thesis. It looks like some other folks are live too that I appreciate, but that's fine. That's good. The more, the merrier. It all flourishes. We all grow together. But the last 2 interviews I did that are posted on my main channel are they're actually to help feed my thesis, which is a lot of fun. I'm from Santa Maria, California. I grew up here, raised here. I was technically born in Santa Barbara, but really, that's because my mom scheduled me for C-section in Santa Barbara, which is where she's from, originally, that area. But her and my dad got priced out in the 80s, and they came to Santa Maria. This is North County. We're the northern part of Santa Barbara County. But in this county, there are 3 missions, the California missions, founded by the Spanish Franciscans. And they include Mission Santa Barbara, obviously, Mission Santa Ynez in Santa Ynez, and then Mission La Purísima de Concepcion, which is in near Lompoc, just on the outskirts of Lompoc, California. Don't call it Lompoc, folks. Please don't. But I interviewed 2 Chumash people, Chumash descendants. One of them, Marianne Parra, who's there in my latest video, she's a descendant of people from these 3 missions, Santa Ynez, Santa Barbara, La Purísima, and the Chumash in 1824 led the largest armed uprising, I call it a revolution, against the California mission system. They, if you don't know, the Spanish Franciscans basically, with the backing of military, every Spanish mission, not only did it have the robe-clad padres, they had soldiers. It was a military conquest and a settlement. This was settler colonialism here in California. Just 200 years ago was when this rebellion happened. The indigenous people were put under a forced labor regime. Junipero Serra, Serra, right? He was the kind of the El Presidente of the California missions when they were started. He came from a very authoritarian Catholic upbringing in Mallorca, Spain, and they called it living under the bell. When you're under the bell, as an initiate into the order or into Catholicism. But for the indigenous people, once you were baptized, you became a ward of the Franciscans. You became legally like their child, a minor child under their supervision. And there was forced labor. The military soldiers were there to protect the mission endeavor and enact the forced labor regime. They were also constantly assaulting um, the indigenous people. And you can imagine what that meant for the women. Um, and there was, massive disease, um, European diseases decimating the population. Um, but these three missions in 1824, Santa Ynez is where it popped off. That was actually the last of the three to be built. It was built in like 1810, 1811. I can't always remember the dates perfectly. I am from California. We deal with short-term memory, if you know what I mean, loss. And the Spanish mission, or the mission Santa Ynez, was where the revolution popped off. They set it on fire. That's what the illustration there is for. They got in a shootout at Santa Barbara with the Presidio soldiers. Before any of these missions were established, the Spaniards established a military fort called the Presidio. So the Chumash got in a shootout with the Presidio soldiers at Santa Barbara, and then they occupied La Purísima for nearly a month, and they held it. They said, "This is ours, land back." Right? Only, they were laying claim to their territory, and with the way that, and this is done in the context of the Mexican Revolution, or the first Mexican War for Independence, which was happening all around them. In the same year that I've been to Mission Santa Barbara, where they maintain an archive, and in the same year that this is what my master's thesis is about. In the same year that the Chumash are leading their revolution, the Mexican government is issuing. The new Mexican government is ratifying their constitution, and they're issuing a declaration to the missions to swear an oath of allegiance to the new government. So that's check out these interviews. I also talked to Alan Salazar. He's more Chumash from more down south a bit, but he's a Chumash storyteller. But check out these interviews. The one I did with Marianne is one of my favorite interviews I've ever done, just because it's very significant. And we're raised out here in California. We learn about the missions in fourth grade. It's very romanticized. They don't talk about the forced labor. They don't talk about the epidemic disease and the population loss of the indigenous peoples of California. They don't teach us about that. But I I specifically study the mission period, and I'm not an expert on the Chumash, nor do I claim to be. I know quite a bit about them, but even then it's like quite complicated. There's multiple Chumash groups, and they have their own dialects and linguistic identities, and there's only one tribal nation, but there are multiple tribal groups, bands, if you will. This story, I think, is can tell us a lot about. It tells us a lot about the California mission system, which is what it was. It was a system. It was a settler colonial system that invaded California, a few hundred years ago. I'm actually descended from Spaniards who came here after this time in 1840. I have descendants who were baptized at Mission San Luis Obispo and others. So I wouldn't be out here on California if it weren't for this legacy. Sounds totally woke. You being woke? No, it doesn't hurt me to say that. This is history, okay? It just is what it is. We got some comments here. John says, I grew up on Chumash land, visited several of the missions for school trips, even went to the Chumash Museum once, but I never learned of this rebellion, so thank you for highlighting. You're welcome. More to come on that, definitely. But check out those interviews. I've also been on This Is Revolution talking about it. If you search my name in the This Is Revolution podcast, C. Derek Varn had me on his show as well to discuss it. I'm very appreciative of him. Jacqueline Aguilar, hey Jackie, said they definitely didn't teach us about that. No, they don't. They didn't. They don't want to teach you about that. And frankly, you're in fourth grade. They're not going to teach fourth graders about systemic settler colonial violence. And Junipero Serra, right? He was canonized, turned into a saint. I quote him in my thesis. The first California mission was in San Diego. That's the first one. And within the first few years of it being built, it was attacked by the Kumeyaay. They came over the hill at night, hundreds of them. They set that mission on fire. They were not kind to Father Jaime. They ripped him to pieces, literally, and killed him and a few others. And Junipero Serra was giving a report to his higher-ups about this. And he said, in the case of conquests of this sort, as I've said to you before, he called it a conquest. He said, the place of the soldiers is at the mission. So the California missions were militant occupation, and then they were massive engines of productive output of agriculture. And it was the indigenous people doing all the labor. Wow, John, you're a good guy, man. John said, saw both of those interviews. They were awesome. Thank you, John. I'm going to give you a special little badge. You are now elevated to gold tier platinum membership. So you'll get a special Zoom call with baby my co-host baby Estrella here. I love it when she does this. Look, she lays here. Hi, you little cutie. Hi, little sweetie. She stretches her arm down. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh. Every day it's the cutest day of my life. My wife and I just watch these little things, these cats. But this one is crazy though. She will run across so many hours of me trying to do my thesis, and then she runs into this room and stomps all over the keyboard. You have no idea. But I love her to pieces. Wow, thank you for sharing that, y'all. SS says, I am a direct descendant of 2 Trail of Tears survivors, Cherokee. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. Yeah, and the Chumash. Yes. Oh, isn't she cute? Earlier, she sometimes she'll lick me on the top of the head. She'll bathe me and try to get her scent all over me. She's crazy. She's our crazy one. If we have a bad cat, she's the one where she's like just always getting into stuff. She likes to eat plastic, crazy. This cat is loca in la coca, but we love her to pieces. Thanks, John. That really does make me happy that you have, seen those interviews. And yeah, they're super important. I kind of have been thinking I want to do a video essay of my thesis when I'm done with it, because I believe in making academic scholarship accessible for people. Academia has a huge problem with everything's behind a paywall. Everybody's using these giant words all the time. They don't take time to explain it. And we're in a crisis now. We're in a crisis of literacy. We're in a crisis of people don't know history. They're openly hostile to history and historians. They believe wrong history. They believe, for all of their crying about history and calling it woke, the right wing understands that history is a tool, and history can be a weapon. And that's why they've tried to lay claim to the founding fathers, and they tried to lay claim. Historical erasure is real. I mean, the Chumash, this rebellion has been ignored for generations. And, generations of historians were themselves Franciscans who were spinning the story about this. So, John says, as a philosophy PhD dropout, I have a few things to say about academia, LOL. I think, I do not want to go for the PhD because, that goofy little hat or whatever you get just doesn't mean that much to me. And to be frank, like I'm at a polytechnic school. I don't know my saying. I'm at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I'm at a polytechnic studying the humanities. That school ain't for us. It ain't for the humanities. That school is training engineers and architects and civil planners and agribusiness people and ag science people, agricultural science and all of that. Guess what happened when the pro-Palestine protesters a few years ago during the or last year during the job fair when Raytheon and Boeing were on campus? The campus police cracked their heads in and got them off campus as quick as they could. SS points out that Jason Stanley's moving to Canada because of orange Mussolini's brown shirts. Yeah, and I have thoughts about that. I guess I don't know if he's an American. I think he's from somewhere else, and he studies fascism and he's fleeing the country. Don't leave, folks. Don't leave. Don't leave your neighbors behind. Now's the time to stay and get organized and stick together. And frankly, I don't think you're going to do much better in one of these countries that he's talking about invading. Hey, it's my wife. Hello, Boo Bear. Are you coming home soon, baby? You can see our little baby girl. This cat, she is just too cute. Look at her little face. Oh my gosh. She is like, just a standard little white and gray stripy tabby, but she has like more personality in one paw, man. That's my wife, Candace. Well, folks, anybody got any other thoughts or questions? Anybody, any requests? I don't have my guitar up here, but if you want to ask me about something, but I can wrap it up here pretty soon. But I really appreciate everybody being here with me. Oh, this is interesting. I'm originally from Canada, John says. Actually, that's interesting. There have been people grumbling up here about how that job should have gone to a Canadian scholar. Do you mean Stanley's job? That's interesting. It's interesting to see Canadian politics respond to Trump. Oh, Candace wants to hear impressions. Listen, what we're talking about is a very important matter because impressions are hard to do. Okay? All right? Because a good impression does the entire cadence of a person where they're talking and then they get a little agitated and they're talking with their hands, but then they come back down because that is how you do an impression. And that is what I believe. Thank you. Thanks for all you do, Mr. Paint. Thank you, SS. I don't know. Are you someone I know IRL in real life? Or, if you want to shout out your state or your city, you're free to do that and request an impression. I think one time I was goofing with a friend of mine and I did an impression of like every president starting from like, I don't know, FDR until like the present day. I just did a Bernie impression. That is a very good impression. I get it all the time. Listen, this cat, she is in the top 1/10 of 1% of cutest cats that you've ever seen. She's a adorable cat. Everybody. Now I'm mixing it with Trump. She's a beautiful cat. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves my cat. You're going to see cats. Everybody knows when they watch my show, there's going to be a cat. Somewhere there's a cat. SS says, no, just a subscriber. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. As soon as I'm done with this degree, I'm tired, y'all. But as soon as I'm done with this degree, I want to be back in a big way, talking that shit, having some fun. Thanks for the Bernie support, love. They came out with a story. Like when during the last primary when Bernie had a real chance and they were trying to discredit him and they were saying like that Bernie had all these crazy requests when he would go stay somewhere, like, the room had to be at 70 degrees exactly. It had to be this and this and that. And I think that's when we came up with Diva Bernie. Diva Bernie. I only want cotton, like silk satin sheets. I gotta have 70 degrees in my room. Diva Bernie. There better be only green M&Ms in my green room, and I better have Evian water, and I better because that is what I require to fight the oligarchy. Is a foot massage and Evian, and I want you to be fanning me with palm fronds because that is what I believe. John says it's stunning. A few months ago, the Conservatives were set to win big, but their campaign is imploding now. I'm talking about Canadian politics. The provincial wing of the Conservatives in Ontario is sabotaging the federal Conservative campaign. Yeah, and Trudeau is not popular, right? Like people, kind of like the Democrats here in America, people kind of love to hate him, and he had done a lot of damage to the brand. But then Trump came in and it's literally talking about invading the country. It's talking about invading Canada. Just wild. The Ontario Conservatives are in an auto manufacturing area and hard hit by the tariffs, whereas the federal Conservatives are aligned to oil producing areas who are afraid to retaliate against the tariffs. Oh, and that's the thing. If we're going to get any Schadenfreude, it's from when the right eats itself, that's kind of fun. I'm there for that with the popcorn popped and just, let's pull up a seat and watch. Right on right infighting is a lot of fun. What's the right wing on right wing infighting that's going on right now? Right now, the Daily Wire is imploding because the billionaire money has run out. They've got everything they need. They have Trump. They have the Supreme Court. They have the House and the Senate. So all of a sudden, all this right wing propaganda they've been bankrolling, it doesn't seem so profitable or it doesn't seem so necessary anymore. So even Benny Shapiro is a little stressed out from all that. Ben Shapiro, I could do a Ben Shapiro impression. Listen, starving children just need to die already and decrease the surplus population. You could just do Ben Shapiro, but put in all the lines from Ebenezer Scrooge. Check. Did I mute myself? Good, I didn't. I could just read. I could read lines from Ebenezer Scrooge as Ben Shapiro. How about that? That's pretty good. Bah humbug. I don't make merry myself at Christmas. I can't afford to make idle people merry. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. Oh my gosh. It's some very conservative politics. If you don't know, Ebenezer Scrooge was mouthing what was called Malthusianism. This idea that the poor, this was just like a natural process that the potato famine in Ireland, these poor people, they just need to die out. They need to kind of burn off let them all die off so they can work it out naturally. So when he says, they should die and decrease the surplus population, that's Ebenezer Scrooge mouthing Malthusianism. Lord Malthmas was the mind behind that. But here's another Ebenezer Scrooge read as Ben Shapiro. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. That's pretty conservative ideology, if you ask me. Come on, give me another impression, guys. Give me another impression. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? What are we gonna do? What do we do? It's gonna be big. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have the biggest recession that you've ever seen. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves eating cat food. Everybody loves everybody loves tariffs. We're gonna do it. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be beautiful. Trump just isn't as funny as he used to be. Does anybody else notice that? He's a lot funnier. He's funnier when he's campaigning. Something tells me it's funny. Like there are some like MAGA people who still try to act like, the guy who took a shot at him was a radical leftist, or it had something to do with people calling him Hitler and fascist and whatnot. But the guy was a registered Republican. The guy took a shot at him. And, somewhat like the guy who tossed a bomb in our courthouse here downtown. Maybe they wouldn't maybe he wouldn't. He also the Trump's shooter also just fit the lone wolf, crazy white boy shooter profile. You could have, the FBI knew if nobody saw him, if he got away, everybody would have. The FBI, you wouldn't need like Mindhunter to come in and do a psychological profile on the guy. There was another potential assassination attempt on Trump, and it was another like right wing crank, like the left, the far left, and the extremist left. They might toss a Molotov at a Cybertruck or whatever, but they don't tend to go full like down the scope um, shooter. I mean, we now knowing from all this declassified JFK stuff that Lee Harvey Oswald was well known to the CIA. He was very, very well known to them. A little too well known, if you know what I'm saying. So Oswald may well have done it. But if he did, it was, the CIA knew where he was and when he was and all of that. Imagine that. Imagine that. In reference to the fascism professor who fled the country, it's not a good sign, is it? Guy studying fascism's got to flee the country. Mr. Stanley's decision is probably due to his profession, and his college is bending the knee to the fascist. He cannot stand to see his students not being protected. That's another thing, the war on education. It's something we have to, I'm sorry, but like all fronts, you got to fight against that. I have a critique of academia, right? There are problems in academia. There are problems in our public schools, but just the outright hatred for education and teachers, telling everyone who has a college degree that's not in STEM that their degree is useless. That was the whole thing. That's where this idea of like, you have a useless degree. It's because you're not building bombs and rockets and chemical warfare for the military industrial complex. Oh, well, guess what? Or you're not doing medical research, so you have a useless degree. Well, guess what? We're not even funding that shit anymore. No more medical research. No more. We're not going to do it. Make America healthy again, I guess, doesn't include cancer research, definitely doesn't include vaccine research, right? Listen, words are only acceptable to do research on that. It's going to prove what I think is true about the vaccines, right? That's the only thing. That's the only research we're going to get is the research that they think is going to prove that vaccines cause autism or whatever. That watching that Sam Cedar Jubilee did put Jubilee in my algorithm, and so I saw that, what's his name, Dr. Mike or whoever, the doctor who debated a bunch of vaccine skeptics, including the one lady who was just totally kooky out there. I had a lot of people defending RFK. Some of the same people from the Sam Cedar episode, oddly enough. But that shit'll kill you, man. That shit'll kill you. I don't know. First of all, like during the pandemic, we had all these people coming out who, you got to be pretty bold to like have visible plastic surgery and be telling people that not to get a vaccination because you don't want to inject chemicals. You shouldn't inject chemicals into your body. I can see your face. I can see your face. You're telling me to get it, not to inject chemicals. I can see your face. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? But the pseudoscience, the anti, there's a lot of like brands of American conspiracy theory that you're gonna encounter in your life. It's not good for you, man. It's really not good for you. I know people who've died from preventable illnesses because they did not trust the medical establishment, and they're gone now. They're gone, and they didn't need to be. They didn't need to be. We all make choices, I don't always make the healthiest choices. I'm a bigger guy. I like carbs just a little too much. We all struggle with our own addictions and stuff like that. But, I take blood pressure medication because, that's probably the safer thing to do. Yeah, sorry, I don't have the physique of RFK. Oh, gee, are we going to listen to this guy? Because you don't look like RFK, who's definitely not taking human growth hormone. John says, can't believe anyone takes someone as roided and artificially tanned as RFK seriously on granola hippy dippy health advice. Listen, we're gonna establish a research division of chakra healing and how to balance your chakras. And Shake Shack is gonna put out a new shake that is gonna recalibrate your pineal gland and your root chakra. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. We love it. We love balancing our chakras. Chakra this, chakra that. You talk to RFK. He loves it. John Hadzipetros. Like, he's not even close at all to natural organic or whatever. Nah, dude. No. And that's the other funny thing is, like, this obsession with beef tallow, and it's just like, whatever, I'll shalom, do whatever you want. But um or people act like people did not get sick before modern medicine. And I'm sorry, but you like basic reading of any primary source. You could just you could just you could close your eyes and like reach into a stack of primary sources from just more than 100 years ago, and good chance you're gonna somebody, holy, I'm dying here. Like, I'm sick and I'm dying. I study the California missions, full of sickness and illness. And you have some of this hippie mindset in people who try to talk about this and try to say, "Oh, well, it was just the native people's food supply was depleted." Yeah, their food supply was disturbed, but more than anything, they were exposed to diseases they had no genetic memory fighting. That's it. I read a book by Crosby, Alfred Crosby, I can't remember, and called Ecological Imperialism, which was a dense one, but a really good read, which is about how Europeans were as successful as they were in the colonization of North and South America and Central America, because they brought along with them deadly pathogens that the New World, the indigenous peoples, had no genetic memory for. But they also brought with them, it wasn't just the germs, it was the cattle, it was the sheep, it was the goats, it was the pigs, it was the chickens. Those things were all crawling with pathogens, and they were all of those ungulates, those cows and goats, had seeds in their hooves and in their bellies and their digestive tracts of invasive weedy plants. They transformed the ecology of the areas. The thesis of ecological imperialism is that the Europeans created neo-Europes in the New World. They did better in some areas than others. Here in California, in my stretch, we have a Mediterranean climate, and wine grapes did really well out here because of the climate. So the first, everybody knows that movie Sideways. That's like was filmed here and all around this area. And the Franciscans were the first to be cultivating wine out here. They brought the grapes here, but they also brought germs and their livestock animals, vermin, with diseases. So it was a whole process, and it wasn't any one thing. But once you just study just a little history, and guess what? Those Franciscans were getting sick and dying all the time too, and so were the soldiers. They weren't having a great time. They were not all super healthy and great. My ancestors are buried up against a mountain in Slow County. A lot of babies in that graveyard. Before vaccinations and before modern medicine, people died all the time. You were lucky to make it to your 5th birthday or your 1st birthday. So that graveyard, my Spanish ancestors, this is on my matrilineal side, going back like 11 generations here in California. They were Mexicanos when this was Mexico. And it was not just because they were eating beef tallow or whatever. They weren't all just super healthy. They died all the time. John says, just replace all the softwood lumber that's being tariffed with fries cooked in beef tallow and build houses out of fries. Oh, now you're talking my language, maybe. I also, I do a real good Teddy impression from Bob's Burgers. Hey, Bob, can I get some fries with that, Bob? Can I get the beef tallow fries, Bob? I was listening to this guy RFK, and he's saying something about the beef tallow fries. And, I think that I just want to try it. No, Teddy. Like, I can't do as good the John Benjamin impression, but I need a little water. RFK was talking about those beef tallow fries. And you got any beef tallow back there, Bob? Why not? You don't have any beef tallow? Yeah. I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard. We all, I don't know. I've always kind of been skeptical of a lot of things. You know, I think we should be skeptical of food companies. I think we should be skeptical of, like everything's wrapped in plastic. Everything. Why are there higher cancer rates among, millennials? We have higher rates of certain kinds of cancer than in previous generations, even though those previous generations were smoking like chimneys and, drinking and driving lead-based paint, lead toys, leaded gasoline. But everything, we've all been drinking water in plastic bottles. Why do we think we're all filled with microplastics? You know what I mean? Like that plastic leaches into your water, that plastic. But, I don't hear RFK confronting big plastic. That's don't hear it, You got to be real crunchy hippie to be going to wherever and, and bringing butcher paper with you to wrap around your groceries. And, I got respect for the people who have cheesecloth and whatnot to wrap their produce in, and so and zero waste people. I have a lot of respect for that. If there were one big thing I would change, it would be like, why are we wrapping everything in plastic? I don't know. Doesn't seem great. That's the other thing. Like, I really love Bill Burr, the comedian. He's become a bit of a populist hero. He's always, been nominally liberal and to the left and not afraid to speak out, dude, with the real Boston kind of aggressive, dude, are you kidding me right now? Like that kind of, he's always talked about the banks and everything. But one thing he used to always talk about was overpopulation. And that's come to irk me more and more over the years. And when I hear people talk about overpopulation, I tend to get a little annoyed. And well, how can you say that's not a problem? How can you say most of the world does not live like Americans do? Most of the world is not living in our consumer society. The billions of people around the world, they are actually living a lot. They're not expending the energy that we are on the average as Americans, right? So when we hear about overpopulation all the time, and Bill Burr used to talk about this all the time, he doesn't talk about it as much, which I appreciate. But when you hear people talking about overpopulation, it's because they don't want the rest of the world to live like we do. They don't want people in Africa to live like Americans. They don't think they deserve that. They don't want them to have that. Why do you think Bill Gates is interested in population control in the global South, in Africa and South America and other areas? Like we have to have a whole like worldwide holistic way that we're looking at this. We can't, we can't say the problem is overpopulation when I think a lot of our energy consumption, our food, our mass food production, these are functions of capitalism. These are functions of capitalism. We could have I think we have a lot of engineering problems that frankly, that I think the sustainability movement has been trying to address. But again, it always has to be yoked to what is profitable. What is going to make us a bunch of money? What can we, not is it for the public good? I mean, our water's full of forever chemicals, microplastics, prescription drugs just floating around in our water supplies because it's profitable. And we're all paying the price for that. We don't, the majority of us don't have the Joe Rogan cryo freezing bay and the flotation tank and the stem cell therapies and the testosterone topical treatments. Like, this whole obsession with health and wellness in your body, like, it becomes this trappings of the rich and the wealthy. It's only what you can afford. It's only what you can. It's a status symbol. A lot of the trad wife kind of stuff, homesteading. This is a status symbol. Look at me. In my household, we can afford to have one person working and one of us stay home. Oh, gee, must be nice. Must be nice. John says, funny thing about the overpopulation panic is that the surefire way to lower birth rates is to develop the global south. Look at India. Educated, more developed states have European-like birth rates. And we've seen it here in the United States as well. And, I don't again, that's the other thing about the conspiracy theorism about the vaccines and the medical establishment. They're trying to kill us. They're trying to control the population. If they're trying to control the population, they're doing a hell of a job with it because there's more people than there's ever been. I mean, and that's the thing. I try to express to people who maybe have a little bit of conspiracy sensitivity, like, oh, they're soft conspiracy people. What are they trying to do? They were talking about. There's no hidden conspiracy. They're all talking about it right in front of us, all out in the open. I mean, Elon Musk, the richest guy in the world, is openly trying to buy elections and sway opinion. Funny enough, he's doing a terrible job at it. The more he gets in the limelight, the the worse people feel about him, or the less people like him and his agenda. I mean, that's the one thing is that, it's hard to express to people. They want it to be a secret cabal. They want it to be, the Bilderberg group, or just this one group of people in a smoky room, dark, room full of cigar smoke or whatever. It's weird how clownishly in your face it all is. Like, the richest guy in the world, literally the richest guy in the world, is running around buying elections, dismantling our government, which, if you're going to believe in America in any kind of way, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union and promote the general welfare, that's our government. That's yours and mine. It's the commons. It belongs to all of us, right? The national parks belong to. I have people in my life, close friends that I consider family, who work for the federal government, who are living under constant fear that their jobs are going to be taken away. And they're doing actually things I find essential. I think I think we should know some of the things that, or we should have these people doing some of these jobs, because I believe in public goods. We used to have this idea of a public good, something that exists for all of us, that is there for all of us, that isn't, it's easy to think about, like, the military. Everybody thinks we should have pretty much everybody thinks in America we should have a strong military, because we accept national security as a public good, something we all pay for and we all get. That's what a national park is. They can't keep you out of there unless you really do something, right? But it's for all of us. Clean water is a public good. Clean air is a public good. Safe airways is a public good, or at least it was. Now, did any of you want to take a plane ride? I sure as hell don't. Firing people in the FFA or the FFA is something else. Future Farmers of America. They're taking the cows. They're taking the chickens. They're taking our milk. No, the FAA, right? John says the comforting thing about conspiracy theories is that they make elites seem competent, if evil, right? Yeah. So, Yeah, they give the elites a lot more credit than they're due, but it also just ignores the system, the inertia of capitalism, the how much of it is depersonalized. Like a corporation is like a soulless beast. It's a golem, if you will. It's just a thing that's going to keep going. And the CEO can die. Disney is. I've been thinking of doing a video essay about Disney and Walt Disney and the Disney Company and like its connection to the American Empire. Because you see how like Walt Disney helped create this mythic he told these stories, but he also helped create this mythic idea of America. He's just this enterprising guy in a suit, and here I am, and I have a model of what I'm going to make because I'm an enterprising capitalist. And boy, let me tell you, gee golly gosh, in America, we love enterprise and we love cars and we love, Disneyland itself presents America. You walk in this quaint little Main Street America as you walk in. Oh, gee, golly gosh. And to the right, or to the left, you have a mythic telling of, settler colonial America, frontier land, and Davy Crockett, right? And where are the native peoples? What happened to them? Let's not talk about. And then off to the right, you have the techno positivist future. Ooh, they're just gonna all be zipping around in our cars and our rocket ships, and everything's gonna be great. I don't have much of an Elon Musk impression, but we're going to have it just ends up sounding like a bad Beatle impression when I do it. But we're going to colonize Mars. Yeah, see, I got to work on my Elon impression. He's a piece of garbage. I hate him, so I don't want to even study his patterns too deeply. But you see how Disney himself exemplified this idea of the American businessman, American capitalism, and then the guy dies, and then the company he created, the inertia of it becomes this behemoth. It just it keeps it's like a snake eating its own tail. It's just producing the same thing over and over again. Then it's also like the Blob. It swallows up Marvel, and now it swallows up Disney. It's like the thing at the end of Akira, that anime, right, where it's just becoming this massive thing that's swelling. It's one of the most massive media companies in the world now. And but it's like it kind of illustrates capitalism, where you have that mythic bullshit of I'm just an enterprising businessman who wants to. Meanwhile, as he's like, oh gee golly gosh, come down to we believe in the American dream. He's like cutting propaganda videos with Werner von Braun, the Nazi missileer, the missile engineer, right after he's been brought to America to help us build the bomb or whatever, or and all of that. But Disney was presenting this idea of America, as this is where free enterprise and can-do attitude. And meanwhile, behind him, there's like animators trying to unionize. And he's like, "You be quiet, shut up, or I'll put you in the train." Put you in the back of the train, and you want to what? While I don't know if you know, but like while Disney was building Disneyland, his animation studio was trying to unionize. They were paid terribly, making him a lot of the money that he could even do to like produce to make that place. And he's like riding around on the back lot of his animation studio on his little trains. Doot. You're not gonna unionize here, damn it. I actually met a lady here in my hometown. There was an art exhibit when I was a journalist at the paper, and she's part of that original crew. She was Japanese American. Her husband was a white guy, and so she was part of this two-tiered thing that was in the Disney animation studio, where her husband did the line drawing and got paid bucks, and then she was with all the women, including women of color, in the and she was one of them, including or in the where they did the coloring. They filled in the line drawing that the men did. It was considered the women's work to do the colors on. She said she was in her 70s or 80s when I met her, and this was like more than 10 years ago, or around 10 years ago, I think. And she worked on Snow White. She worked on Cinderella, like the OGs. And you know, uh, and I was like honored to meet her because that's incredible. The there's something to be said for the art, but it also tells you a lot about our society and our system that or the myths that we tell ourselves and all of that. That she labored. Her labor is really. It was this two-tiered system, and her labor is what we love. It's not, everybody wants to give Walt Disney as the visionary, like Steve Jobs kind of did the same shit, right? He's the great visionary, but Wozniak and all the other engineers who actually did the work are the ones who made those computers. Oh, it's the stories we tell ourselves. That's what'll get you. That's what'll get you. So sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to recognize where you're guilty of it yourself. Um, I think on the left we tend to romanticize, whatever the hippie movement or the anti-war movement of the Vietnam era, even though it completely fell apart and handed the country to Nixon. Bernie got close last time, but still lost both times, unfortunately. I like to go back a little farther. I'm a big fan of Woody Guthrie and I want to watch that Bob Dylan movie because Ed Norton is playing Pete Seeger, and there's a lot of I guess it depicts a lot of Red Scare stuff, but I could go on and on, folks. I got 3 of you here. I got 1 on Twitch and 2 on YouTube. Who's on Twitch? Who's watching me on Twitch? It's got to be a bot, man. It's got to be a bot. They ain't commented once. I don't believe it. It's not real. Fake news. Fake viewers. Fake. As long as I have 2 of you here commenting, which I've had consistently, John Hadzapetros. Thank you, John. And SS 1964 with the golden retriever. The golden retriever in the profile pic. Thank you for your eyeballs. I don't want to assume, but all 4 of them. Sorry if you've had any kind of issues or accidents in your life. Maybe it's less than that, but hopefully we can all be so lucky hopefully we can all be so lucky to survive the next 4 years. See something better. But I think I might let y'all go. Don't think I had anything else I wanted to show you or talk about, but I appreciate you all subscribing to my channel. Spread the word if you can. Say, hey, this guy ain't so bad. I've been on hiatus. I've been at school, but I've been sharpening my tools. You know what I'm saying? I've been sharpening the axe, and I'm hoping to come back in a bigger way because I'll have somewhat more time. It's been an insane amount of work. I work full time, 40 hours a week, and I've been in grad school. I couldn't do it without my beautiful wife, who's been there for me in a huge way to get me through all of this. And so I always got to give a shout out to her. I love her to pieces. She's working still right now. We both work quite a bit, but I'm in my first week back of my last quarter at Cal Poly. So, the reading hasn't hit me quite yet. So I thought I would hop on stream, have a little fun, say hi to y'all. Let's do it again. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have fun. We gotta keep the hope up and keep things moving. And I don't think I have much more to wax poetic or to say, but other to say thank you all for being here. Left is best. Keeping it real. Hopefully keeping it real doesn't go wrong. But we love you. You're beautiful people. We love you very much. It's time to go to bed. Get to bed. Get some good sleep. Get your circadian rhythm right. You got to make sure that your circadian rhythm is correct so that you're not just staring into your phone and doom scrolling right before bed, or else you're circadian rhythm in your root chakra and your crown chakra will get misaligned, and that's not what you want to do. It's hard. It's hard to uptake your adrenaline, and it's hard to uptake your testosterone shots if you're not have a balanced chakra. So we're going to make America energy healing again. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.